First up, we're going to call on Dave Porter from the AP. Dave, you may need to unmute yourself. First up, we're going to call on Dave Porter from the AP.
He's still on
Dave,
mute.
you may need to unmute yourself. First up, we're going to call on Dave Porter from the AP.
Somebody's recording it or the gaggle. You need to tell them to turn off their thing because it's just going to do feedback.
Hey, folks, we have some feedback. If you still have the board meeting or the gaggle up in your web browser, that's Google Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, please close out of those windows. We have a feedback loop. Okay, trying again. Dave Porter, AP. Okay, we'll come back. Samantha Maldonado, Politico.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can, thanks.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Okay, yes, now I can. Hi, I know you commented on this a little bit, but I'm hoping that you can elaborate on what you thought about not getting federal money in the last CARES Act package, and if you see better odds under Biden, what's going on there?
Well, the big framework is the $3 billion hole that we project by the time we get to March of 2022. We will have lost that amount of revenue, and that will have, from our perspective, dire consequences for our ability to continue our level of capital construction projects. That in turn means that our ambitions to rebuild subpar legacy infrastructure will not materialize, certainly in terms of projects that have not yet begun construction, and it will severely limit our ability to contribute to a strong recovery of the region, which is what the region so desperately needs. We have made that case as intensely as we can to the Congress. We were extremely disappointed in terms of the December action that put off the provision of financial aid to state and local governments. That is what is currently under consideration in the Congress. The new administration is clearly enormously supportive of aid to state and local governments. That is an active conversation with the Congress, and we continue to make the case that the Congress should take notice of multi-state agencies like the Port Authority, which don't fit in to the traditional structure of states, counties, and municipalities. And we will continue as the Congress goes through its process, which has been reported, and that's what we know, which is that final action is anticipated in March, to make the case as strongly as we can for the Congress to create a separate pot of funding for multi-state agencies like the Port Authority. We think this is critical, and we will continue to make that case to the Congress and to the administration.
Yeah, let me just jump in to add color to that, Rick. So again, there's no dynamic in the past that's allowed for definitionally a bi-state agency to be funded. You fund the states, the counties, the locals. So we have tried to educate the folks in D.C. about how this is a different funding formula, and you have to look at the optics a little bit differently. We are really, really optimistic, having worked with very closely, Rick and I and the senior staff, with the delegations legislatively in New York and New Jersey, and they are operating as one. They're just doing an amazing job of advocating. And I know Senator Schumer and Menendez have taken the lead, and the Congress members in both sides, Meeks and Nadler and Gottheimer and Norcross, and literally every single Congress member we have reached out to has been enormously supportive. The governors have been enormously supportive, reaching out personally to the speaker to let her know that this is a real ask. And we're hopeful that we're going to get some good news either through the funding formula or whatever appropriations the congressional oversight or other committees go through. So we remain optimistic, but there's a lot of work ahead of us.
Great, thanks, Sam. Pat McGeehan from the Times.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Pat.
Nope.
If you're speaking, we've lost you, however.
How about now?
Now we can once again.
Okay, here we go. So I want to ask about the JFK issue. It looks like that's the first capital project that's being affected, whose funding and plans are being affected by COVID-19. Can you talk a little bit more about exactly what you're doing in the shifting around of money there?
Sure. It is the big framework is what we have laid out before, which is that projects that have not begun construction are the projects that are going to suffer. JFK is amongst those. So what you are seeing is we are reallocating funding, which had previously been authorized by the board, from projects that are directly tied to the redevelopment to projects that, while they will facilitate renegotiated deals at Kennedy, also have independent utility for the airport if we are not successful in renegotiating deals and if we are not successful in finding Port Authority capital funding to support them. So let me give you a specific example. We are shifting funding away from the rebuilding of taxiways adjacent to where the new terminals are planned to go to an electrical substation. The electrical substation is needed with or without the redevelopment. So it is, we are focusing on putting ourselves in a position which we hope to be in, which is to renegotiate the private deals and to develop sources of funding. Federal aid is critical to this. So what you see us doing in this is cutting back on early work spending and directing that spending to facilities which would support these deals that we're trying to renegotiate, but if the redevelopment does not go forward, would still be advantageous and needed and utilized by the airport.
Can I have one follow-up on that, Rick? I'm wondering, the language in that resolution, I thought it indicated that maybe the airlines were not going to be able to come up with their part of that redevelopment plan. What have you heard from them?
Well, we're in discussions with all of the airlines who are involved in these projects, and I can't really predict how those will come out. The airlines, I would say, as we do, believe that air travel will come back. It's a question of when, not if. And so the primary discussion requires everyone to feel comfortable with the trajectory, the timing of when the air travel comes back. But there's no question that both the increase in capacity that that would be driven by this transformation, as well as bringing these facilities up to 21st century standards, remains a goal of all of our partners. The challenge is to take account of the impact that coronavirus has had on the Port Authority and on the airlines, but we are hard at work with involved airlines, with the developers who are driving the terminal renovations and transformations, and we're committed to try to get there, but we need aid, and we need to be able to find the sweet spot in terms of restructuring the projects so that they fit with the trajectory of the return of passenger traffic.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Pat. Paul Berger at the Journal.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thanks. Hi. Just one very quick question and then a follow-up. In terms of the 5 World Trade Center, is that lot regarded as part of the 16-acre World Trade Center site, or is it regarded as being, adjacent to it?
We certainly regard it as part of the 16-acre World Trade Center site, and the only oddity which Derek Utter touched on is historical, which is the museum and memorial sit squarely on Port Authority land, in terms of the campus. At the time that the memorial and museum were being designed and mapped out, the Port Authority contributed that land to those purposes. This goes back to 2005, 6, 7. What was done at that time was to commit the land under the Deutsche Bank building, which was continues technically to be owned by LMDC, but the arrangements by which the Port Authority contributed the land were to be offset by the ultimate transfer of the Site 5 land to the Port Authority. So and in doing that, it expanded the Port Authority campus really to compensate and make up for the land mass that was committed to the memorial and museum. So one's gone down, the other's gone up.
Got it, thank you. And then the follow-up then, just regarding today's, resolution, is given the struggles that have been seen at the site, filling Tower 1, finding an anchor tenant for Tower 2, and then seeing this announcement today, which is a residential development rather than commercial development, is it a sign perhaps that the area has reached saturation point for commercial development, and that, the fact that this is going to be a residential building shows that, there is no more demand for commercial space in that area?
Well, I think my comment would be that I would not bet against Manhattan real estate. We believe firmly that the city, the state, the region, northern New Jersey will recover from the impact of the coronavirus crisis. But one has to focus on the fact that the rest of the buildings on the World Trade Center campus are office buildings. So the fact is, before COVID, One World Trade Center hit 93% or so leased up percentage. The leasing percentages on the other towers are quite strong. Obviously, we don't know ultimately what the trajectory will be of the recovery. But what I would say is a straw in the wind is the fact that we started this the 5 World Trade Center RFP pre-COVID, and the bids were submitted pre-COVID. COVID. The award that is being made is after the bidders collectively were given the opportunity, given COVID, to revise their bids either up or down. And what I can report to you is that the bidders stayed with their pre-COVID bids. So this is a long-term development time horizon, and the private sector is looking past the immediate impact of COVID onto a recovery.
May I add something, Rick? This is Jeff. Paul, hello. Tower 5 is 1.56 million square feet. 360,000 of that, about 22%, is being reserved for commercial and other uses like community. Of the remaining 1.2 million square feet, which has 1,325 apartments, approximately 25% is 330 affordable units. And as you know, it takes a community of not just office buildings to make a vibrant downtown. In fact, there are certain organizations, community-based, saying, why is it all affordable? So I wanted to give you balance of what's happening here in terms of creating an entire community, leaving some for commercial, some for community facility, some for residential rentals, some for affordable residential, no condominiums of luxury. So that's, I give you a little more flavor of some of the balancing of the equities.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Larry Higgs at the Ledger.
Yes, hi, how you doing? My question is about the environmental health perspective study that came out yesterday that said there are high levels of particulate matter and black carbon in path stations and in trains after they did some testing. My question is, what is your reaction to that report, and what is the Port Authority's plans to mitigate that?
Well, I think the headline here is we are obviously concerned. We only received the report yesterday, approximately midday. So our plans are, first of all, to dig into the report. We will absolutely do that as quickly as possible, and we will analyze what the implications are, what the findings were, and we are totally committed to protecting the health and safety of our workers. We're totally committed to protecting the health and safety of path riders, and we will dig into this, come to conclusions, and if necessary or appropriate, develop an action plan to address it.
Yeah, let me just further develop that, Larry. 100%. We just got the report. We're just doing a deep dive the next couple of days. You know, the health and safety of the workers and the employees and the public is of paramount concern to us, and you'll hear from us shortly on this.
A follow-up question, basically what kind of ventilation system exists now? I mean, is it pretty much what was built where you're relying on the trains bringing air in from the surface as they come in and out, or has there been anything done down there in the intervening years?
Well, it depends on the station, Larry. So I think making generalizations at this point, we need to look at this issue. We need to understand where the measurements were taken, how they were taken, what they showed. And then look at both the HVAC units in the trains and look at obviously the HVAC units at World Trade Center are wildly different from what exists at legacy stations. So we need to dig into this, and as the chairman said, we will come back to you.
Thanks, Larry. Dave Meyer at the Post.
Hi, can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. I apologize if this question doesn't have an answer or has already been answered, but I'm wondering for 5 World Trade Center, what the Port Authority expects the construction to cost and who would be paying for it.
Well, to answer the second question, the construction cost is going to be totally paid by the private investors. That this is a large building. It's roughly the same height as Tower 4. Obviously, it is shorter than One World Trade Center, but this will be a very substantial construction cost financed entirely by the private investors. It should produce 10,000 jobs, real economic activity that will benefit lower Manhattan.
Thanks. Clayton Guzza, the Daily News.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a couple questions on Tower 5 as well. Real quick, well, the first one's a two-parter. Did you have a cost on David's question? Any kind of price estimate for the cost of this project? And then you guys had it estimated to start construction in 2023. Do you have an estimated completion date?
Well, I think those questions should be directed to the developer. We have had estimates from the developer. I think it would be better to have them declare what their estimate is of the construction cost, and the timetable that we have had is from them as part of the bid process is a start of construction in 2023 with a targeted conclusion 2028.
Got it. And then when it came to bidding out this project, were there any bidders that proposed? Were you guys always planning from the start of this RFP a primarily residential building? Did any bidders propose a more commercial heavy development? Can you just give us a little background on what exactly was proposed, and if you guys had been planning fully or mostly residential site for since the onset of this?
The RFP, which was a joint RFP, LMDC and the Port Authority specifically invited bids either for a commercial office building or for residential or for mixed use. The bids that were received, there were a number that were residential, there were a number that were commercial. What we've announced today is that the selection committee, which was composed of employees at both the Port Authority and LMDC with real estate and financial expertise, that the proposal from Brookfield and Silverstein was the one that they recommended. But both proposals, both with respect to commercial and with respect to residential, were received. This residential proposal emerged as the top selection of the selection committee. As Derek Utter's presentation pointed out, the original general project plan for the World Trade Center campus provided for all of the building sites to be commercial. So, and we made clear in the RFP that if a residential proposal won, that the Port Authority would join with LMDC, but it's primarily an LMDC process, and the developer in convening a GPP process which involves opportunities for public input to look at a modification of GPP to allow residential development at this site. And that is what will happen, and we anticipate that process will take place over the next year.
Thanks. Mark Hallenham, New York. Jump off. Jeff Yaplatter, Airport Voice.
Good afternoon. You hear me?
Yes, we can, Jeff.
Great. Thank you, everybody. First thing, Snips Media and Airport Voice wants to send condolences on George McDonald. We echo all the words that you've said. A really wonderful man. We're so sad. Second thing, I want to report back on Camco from JFK is the airline group there, and they wanted to, the other day, had a meeting and thanked the EOC at JFK for the great work that was done in the storm. Everybody was so happy with the communications that were passed around and everybody's involvement, so I just wanted to share that with you. My question is regarding cargo at JFK. Two things. There was an RFP sent out, I think, in October for general development of the North Cargo area. I'd like to know what happened with that. And secondly, the two buildings, 260 and the Air Cargo LLC, what's the status of those two buildings?
So, Jeff, I'm going to give you a couple of headlines, and then I think we ought to facilitate an offline discussion with
Okay.
aviation. So, first of all, appreciate your comments with respect to Commissioner McDonald. The big picture with respect to cargo is that part of the vision plan for the transformation of JFK committed us, Port Authority, the Aviation Department, to redeveloping, reorganizing, and making more competitive and more effective the cargo operations at JFK. That was the purpose of the JFK RFP, and it is part of that overall process. And what I would suggest is, in terms of your specific comments or questions and how they fit into that overall vision, that we facilitate some follow-up conversation. I do want to say, in terms of your comments about the Emergency Operations Center, that is a tribute to Huntley Lawrence and to Charles Everett in terms of that operation. I'm pleased to say I have vivid memories of this. A lot of the improvements, the evolution of the Emergency Operations Center followed the experience that we had with Winter Storm Grayson a little over 3+ years ago. I'm delighted to hear your report on that, but the real on-the-ground leadership to achieve that end really belongs to Huntley Lawrence as Director of Aviation and Charles Everett as Deputy Director of Aviation and General Manager of JFK Airport.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll get back to you on the other side. Mark, I think you're on. You rushed over you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is regarding the 330 affordable units in 5 World Trade. How affordable do you project them to be? Is there an income range requirement in mind at this point?
Yes, is the short answer. The income limits are lower than is actually mandated by the current city program, so that the maximum income, I'm going to stumble here over whether it's a family of 3 or family of 4, but we will get that for you.
I think it's a family of 3, Rick.
Okay, $51,000.
Family of 3.
You said $51,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Eve Kessler, Streets Blog.
Lindsay, is that all?
I think Eve is on. She just unmuted.
Hi, I just wanted to know, is there anything that you guys have to say about the LaGuardia Air Train?
We have a lot to say about the LaGuardia Air Train. It would be irresponsible not to build a rail mass transit link to LaGuardia, number one. Number two, customers, passengers repeatedly emphasize that access to the airports is one of their absolutely top criteria in terms of judging an airport today. We are completely rebuilding LaGuardia into a world-class 21st century airport, tearing down every single passenger facility and rebuilding it to 21st century standards, new, the exception of the landmark Marine Air Terminal. To have a world-class airport and not to provide a rail mass transit link would, as I say, be irresponsible. The goal of a rail mass transit link is to get people out of cars, reduce congestion for everyone on the roadways surrounding the airport, and thereby reducing particulate air pollution as well as greenhouse gases, and finally to provide passengers, airline passengers, with a predictable, reliable journey to the airport. With respect to Midtown Manhattan, that journey from Midtown, either Grand Central or Penn Station, would be under 30 minutes. And we think there's just no rational or defensible course of action other than to get the air train in operation as fast as humanly possible. And I guess the final comment I would make is that the route that the air train follows, if you look at a map of Queens and where the airport is located, the land adjacent to the airport on the other side of the Grand Central Parkway is some of the most densely built residential and commercial areas in the country. And what the route does successfully is totally avoid any taking of private property, residential or commercial. It avoids heavy construction in any densely populated, densely built area, and it succeeds in moving passengers to and from the airport, from the Willits Point stations of both the Long Island Railroad and the 7 line to the airport in under 6 minutes.
Yeah, let me just jump into that. So we speak on one voice with the commissioners and the executive director. We are 100% totally committed to AirTran at LaGuardia. It will never achieve its world-class designation unless it has a transportation mechanism to get in and out of there, environmentally sound, safe, and it's the only airport in the country that's not going to have an AirTran. Just doesn't make any sense. So we are totally committed, looking forward to moving ahead, working with the community, and it seems like there's going to be a broad range of acceptance, and we look forward to moving forward with this program.
Just to circle back, Dave Porter, were you able to join, or did you jump?
Lindsay, is that everyone?
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. See you next month.
Thank you.